Mike, you good? You can hear us?
Looks like Mike and Jeff are both on.
All right. Very good. Bob, take it away.
Great, thank you, Mayor. You've got, on the first page, just one speaker on the public agenda. On page 2, number 1 is a recommendation from staff and the park board to enter into an agreement for the management of the ice center with Rink Management Services. It's a 5-year agreement with a 5-year option. In this agreement, we establish maintenance standards for the facility, and those maintenance standards were done in conjunction with or coordination with the user groups. When we put it together, actually they were in the RFP, so all of the proponents knew about them, and they're included in the contract. Number 2 is a contract with Galls for the purchase of police uniforms. And you'll read through in the report, it's not just the purchase, but it's the purchase system itself. So they have an online system, makes it really easy for officers to get their replacement uniforms. Number 3 is our annual railroad crossing improvement project. On Tuesday, you'll approve a $300,000 project budget for railroad crossing repairs. That's actually 21 and 22 money. We normally do 150,000, did not spend 150 in 21, so we're rolling it over to 22 so we can do needed improvements. Page 3, number 4, this is approving design funding for improvements on 13th Street West, the Commerce Street area, and Douglas. So this is again, to start the design process for those projects.
I think it's 135th Street.
What did I say?
You said 13th.
That is correct. It's 135th, but I wrote down 13th.
It is from Central to 13th. That's
well,
probably where
there you go. I was
confusion.
just a little too fast. Yeah.
Is that anywhere near Bridge?
And Tyler.
Tyler.
Number 5 is funding for a water main replacement in George Washington Boulevard. That would approve the budget for this project. Also approving budget for the 2022 pedestrian corridor safety improvements. This primarily will be used on McLean, and then if those improvements can be completed under budget, then we'll make some improvements on Broadway as well. Number 7 is approval of the guaranteed maximum price of $1,025,000 for the Chester I. Lewis project, and would transfer $225,000 from the 2022 athletic court project to complete this work. We will then restore those projects in 2023, and that'll be included in the CIP. That'll come to you in the future. Number 8 is a removal of dangerous and unsafe structures. Page 4, you've got a zoning change, number 1 on non-consent planning agenda. There are valid protest petitions, so it'll take a 6 out of 7 vote. That's all I have on 4, and I don't have anything on page 5. Page 6, just at the bottom, number 5, the Minobar Shade project came in above estimate. The revised budget would be $170,000 for this. The bids came in higher than estimated due to increased material costs, which is kind of getting to be a broken record on projects now. We're recommending that you transfer $35,000 from 2 projects that have been completed. There were 2020 projects, and there's savings available. So that would be $35,000 to balance the budget out.
So Bob, on
Yes.
the 2020 projects, those projects were completed, and these were just savings that we realized from those projects?
That's my understanding.
Okay,
Yeah.
so there's no unfinished projects from 2020? And nothing's not getting completed? Gotcha, okay, thank
Correct.
you.
Page 7, number 6, The low bid came in approximately $8,000 greater than the estimate, so we need the council to approve the overestimate bid. It's a small increase. Number 7 is committing an officer to the U.S. Marshal's Violent Offenders Task Force. The Marshal's office would pay for the officers' overtime when they're assigned to this task force. Numbers 8 and 9 are approval of the seizure fund budgets, one from revenues received from the state, the other from federal. And each year you need to approve those budgets as recommended by the chief. Just a reminder that these budgets, the expenditures from these budgets can only go for new items. They cannot supplement items that have already been approved by the council in the budget. So you can't, they have to be new expenditures in categories that are outlined by the state and federal governments. So, but the council still has to approve it. It mostly goes for equipment and some other expenses associated with drug enforcement. Number 11 is done every year, and this is the order of succession that shows what the order after mayor and vice mayor. And then on page 8, number 14, under airport items, this would add a new air cargo operator at Eisenhower. That's all I have.
All right, any questions? Discussion? Guess not. Well done.
Thank you. So, this is your monthly presentation on an item from a department. This one is related to the fire department. Yes, we are. Yep. And Chief Snow is going to make the presentation. This has to do with the staffing and equipment study that's being done by the department, and she'll give you some details about that work. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chief Snow.
Good morning,
Morning, Chief.
Mr. Mayor and City Council Member Tammy Snow, Fire Chief. Can all of you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you so you can see the presentation. Can you see that okay?
Yep.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Just to give you a real brief review of our predictive analytics, in 2019, we secured the funding for the dynamic software, and we did that in lieu of a one-time staffing study. In 2020, then, we spent the majority of our time trying to identify the software package that we wanted to purchase. We elected to purchase Code 3 Advisor by Levram. You'll hear me refer to the predictive analytics either as Code 3 Advisor and or as Levram. I interchange those words. So I'm referring to the same thing, predictive analytics. Our primary goal when we were looking for the software package was to find software that had to provide continual evaluation of the department, identifying our service gaps based on our established performance measures. Well, then in 2021, I provided to the council an overview of Levram. Levram is a very complex software package, and it's an extremely powerful tool. It will change, and it's going to continue to change, not only the future of the department, but service delivery for years to come. And because of the impact of this tool, quality has driven every single one of our decisions, because we understand that this is going to be the foundation for the future of the City of Wichita's fire service. I need to be able to move to the next screen. Give me a minute. All right. In front of you now is a timetable. When I presented to council, we had established some timelines, and I want to provide you an update on those timelines. The very first timeline that we had was we needed to complete the IT agreements and obtain our required approvals. We thought that we could get that done by January of 2021. In reality, it took us to April 28th of 2021. The next thing that happened once we obtained the approvals and made the purchase was Leverum came into town with their staff, and they provided us week-long training. We sent 7 WFD staff members to that training, 3 from fire administration, 4 from the IFF. Our next hurdle was then to implement the data from our CAD records and also from our record management into Leverum. We originally anticipated getting that done by May of 2021, but we ran into some challenges, which I'll share with you in a little while. But we didn't actually get that completed till December 3rd of 2021. We are currently in the process of validating the CAD information, and our next step is the validation of our base model that has been built and is up and functioning, but we have not validated. One of the things that we anticipate in the near future is the actual integration of the new CAD system. The county has purchased a new CAD system. It's supposed to go live in May of 2022. We're unsure of what kind of hurdles we're going to have to address at that particular time. And then the last thing, once we have everything validated, all of the CAD data and also our base model validated, our next step would be then to compose a comprehensive report that's going to analyze our current services, our resources, our deployment, and our performance, and then to make recommendations. So and this is just a review for those of you that had the opportunity to sit on council last time I made the presentation, but how does Leverum work? Leverum actually supports modeling changes in all aspects of our operations. For example, our station locations, our staffing and our apparatus assignments, our scheduling and our dispatch policies. So to give you something to reference to, in the past, the way that we figured out where our station should be located was we did a lot of forecasting. We forecasted what the future of the city looked like, where the growth opportunities were going to be, what the population densities of that actual area were, and then we tried to forecast out what the call volume would be in those particular areas. But probably the biggest driver for us on station location was based on a 4-minute drive time to all calls. Over the last few years, that drive time has eroded. We currently average 4 minutes and 53 seconds. And as a result of that, as we continually try to evaluate ourselves, that's the reason why we currently have the implementation of the emergency medical dispatching prioritization, and why I brought to you the updates on our MOUs. In the past, when we took a look at staffing and apparatus assignments, we did it on what's worked good for Wichita for all these many years, since the 80s. We utilized one squad and 1 engine. So a total of 5 personnel assigned to a station. That's what we based our thought processes on. But probably the biggest driver for us was an anticipation of call volume. Sometimes we got that right, sometimes we didn't get it right. Those of you that have been around since we opened up Station 22, the station that's located at High Hydraulic in Dinkin, when we first opened that station, we had 1 apparatus in it. That was what our forecast was. Well, we soon learned within 6 months that we didn't do a very good job of forecasting call volume. They were inundated with calls, in excess of over 5,000 calls. So 1 apparatus wasn't being able to take care of that. So at that time, that's when we moved Squad 3 from Station 3 down to Station 22 to help them with that. And as far as scheduling, we never really took a look at anything other than the data that we assumed from our staffing numbers based on the MOU and FSLA, without considering any other kind of variables. For example, do we have the right number of apparatus with the right number of personnel to mitigate the alarms safely? Do we have too many or too few? We never took a look at peak times or utilization times. Do we need 2 apparatus in there, maybe from 8 in the morning till 10 at night, and then it can get by with 1? Do we need an apparatus in there for a full 24 hours? These are things that Leverum will provide us data for so that we can make good decisions moving forward. And as far as dispatch policies, and always in the past, that's something that we continually to change because we are considered an all hazards agency. We want to make sure that we're sending the right number of apparatus and the right number of personnel to mitigate whatever hazard that we're being asked to address. One of the points I truly want to stress is that LEVRAM does not give us any solutions, none whatsoever, but it's going to provide the data to make better informed decisions regarding change. It's going to be based on facts, on factual data, not on what I think, not on what I believe, not on how I feel. It's going to allow us to take an in-depth view of where we are today. For example, the percentage of times that we meet our standards on each of the calls. So for example, right now, I can tell you how many times the first arriving apparatus arrives on scene. But I cannot tell you without significant amount of staff time that how many times that first apparatus happens to be an engine at a structure fire. And is it within 4 minutes? And then I cannot tell you right now, I have no means of doing this, again, without significant amount of staff time, on when the second pumper arrives at a structure fire. Is that within 6 minutes? Why is that important in our industry? Because the first engine only comes with 3 minutes worth of water, and I need a second engine there to sustain that water supply. But that's how deep that we can dive into our actual performance. The other thing, right now, I can produce heat maps for you, and they'll tell you call volumes, but I can't dive into all the different types of calls. For example, I can't tell you where are most of the trash fires occurring within the city of Wichita. We think we do a pretty good job. We strategically have placed our jaws of life throughout the city, but right now I can't drill down into and tell you, what area of town has the most 1048 pins. So do I have the jaws located in the proper place? I don't know. But LEVRAM's going to give me that data to allow me to make that decision. And then the other thing that LEVRAM will do is it's going to provide data for what-if scenarios. We have to ask it the questions, and it will provide the data for it. For years, we have thought that Station 5, which is located at located at Hillside and 2nd Street, that its primary response area has been overlapped by other stations within that area. Now we'll be able to get that information from LEVRAM and be able either to confirm that or deny it. All right, so I told you I'd tell you the reason why our timeline has changed, and it's basically because of these challenges that we have faced. And the very first challenge is because of the significance of this particular software program, it is crucial that we get clean and accurate data. I'm sure you're very well aware that the city and the county's computer systems don't speak very well to each other. So we had to, the LEVRAM programmers came in, and what they did was they built bridges for us so that now the two computer languages can speak to one another. And then once they did that, then internal staff was able to write some SQL statements to allow us to obtain the data that we needed from that information. Model validation, this is the stage that we're currently in right now. Currently, we're evaluating that CAD data. We're also we're beginning to take a look at our base model and starting to evaluate that data. What do I mean by validation? It would equate to also an audit. In other words, it's a check and balances of the outputs. Did it follow our SOPs? Did it take into account our auto aid agreements? Did it look at our response profiles and did it follow them? And did it take into consideration any kind of cross-staffing? So in other words, it audits our outputs to ensure that's in alignment with our current operations, or in other words, it's quality control. We have to take a look at our hazard assessments. The different geographic areas in the city, they differ throughout the entire city. So those we have to take into consideration. And all of you know that constantly technology is changing. And then we're unsure what we're going to run into when they implement the new CAD system. But because of the impact, and I continue to stress this, because of the impact of this tool and what it's going to have on the future of the fire service for the city of Wichita. Quality has got to be the driver here. So what's our end goal? What do we see? What we want to provide is to ensure the maximum that the community receives its maximum service equity, and we continue with excellent customer service. Levern is up and functioning. The base model has been built. We're in the validation stage, as I had said earlier. Our first step is to evaluate the entire city. We want to identify our citywide gaps, our citywide deficiencies, and then we want to compose a comprehensive report. So what will this comprehensive report look like? Well, the comprehensive report is going to produce analysis of our current and our historic response performance. It's going to identify our service and our capability gaps. It's going to take a look at our reliability, our unit reliability. It will implement the 22 critical task analysis for structure fires and ensure that we have an effective response force. It's going to analyze and overview the entire all community risk. And it's going to provide temporal and spatial analysis of service demands, or in other words, we're going to take a look at drive times and terrains. And one of the last things that it will do is it will also provide for us an evaluation of surge capacity and resource drawdown levels, or in other words, what's our capacity and what levels of risk do we want to assume, or will we assume? And then finally, we will make some recommendations. So how am I going to get to this? My end goal, I told you, was July 29th of this year. To get to that, I currently have internal staff that have the institutional knowledge. They're well-versed in best practices. They have the cognitive skills to do the data analysis, and they have exceptional IT skills. But they're currently riding on the back ends of fire trucks. So I need to redirect their current assignment. But at the same time, I also have an obligation to the union and to the citizens that we put 117 personnel out every single day. And to do that, then what I would like to do is I want to backfill for their positions. I want to redirect their work assignments to this project. I want to backfill for them so that we are in compliance with the IFF agreement. And to do that, I'm planning on using $250,000 of the $1 million ARPA money that's been set aside, and then we can utilize the balance for the very first year of implementation. So with that, then I'll stand for questions.
Questions?
I wanted the chief to go through some of that. I know some of it was pretty detailed, but I want you to understand the complexity of this process, and that when it's all done, we're going to have a really reliable system. Short term, we'll have great recommendations on what we should be doing next, but then 2 years from now, 3 years from now, we'll be able to test and to continue to pivot as we see conditions change. And that's been one of the problems before. You do a staffing and an equipment study, it's 10 years, 15 years between studies, and a lot of things change. And that's been one of the things that you've heard from firefighters. They're concerned about where we are today. With this model, we'll be able, as things happen, we'll be able to address those. And we can shift equipment, we can shift people, and eventually build new stations. So anyway, I wanted to share this with you, let you know about how we would spend that first chunk of ARPA money in order to make sure that we have folks that are designated to this project full time so that we can get a good solution by this summer. Yep, yep.
One of the things I saw, one of the first couple slides talked about locations, and then you brought up locations. So this data will be able to show where we should build new stations if we were to do that.
Yes, I'll let the chief answer that, but yes.
Yes, you're exactly right. That it will allow us to move stations around, just kind of like how Quick Trip continues to evaluate where their locations are, and that's why you'll see them close one close a Quick Trip on a corner and move it over to the other corner. We'll be able to do exactly the same thing. We can move stations every day if you like, Councilmember Johnson.
We would not like that.
I didn't think so.
But this is a great slide, because the old way of doing this was you would determine a new station location. And you wouldn't do much more. You play around on the edges until you're ready to build a new station. Now, this is a lot more comprehensive in terms of how you look at where you send people and where you send pieces of equipment. I love the idea on scheduling about the possibility of differential staffing and equipment. You know, I think it's a 21st century way of approaching our fire needs.
Yeah, if I could add, when I think of our existing stations, the one at Lincoln and Rock, and then at Hillside and Second, those are both very constricted footprints, very difficult egress, ingress for the equipment. They may not be in the right location anymore, right? Especially with how we build our stations now. There may not be enough square footage for that, so this is very good. My question is on the last slide. So I should have had this on while I was talking. The 250, was that for the software, or is that for the staff assignments for this first phase? Or is that out of the 1 million, or is that additional?
Out of the 1 million, out of the first year's million, it's not a repeat expense. And that's for the backfilling of staff, and then I believe for some hardware that's necessary to help with the manipulation.
So we have 750 left.
Yeah, that's correct.
Gotcha.
For
Thank
the
you.
first year.
Okay.
And since we won't have the recommendations until the summer, we shouldn't be hurt in terms of implementation.
Okay, cool.
I just
Thank
have one quick question. When you're talking about moving stations, are you talking about moving existing stations or adding additional stations?
It'll be both, to be very honest with you. The report's going to dictate, and it'll tell us, all our stations where they need to be right now. Do we need to add additional stations? It'll provide us, and what I foresee, to be very honest with you, is we're going to have to design a master plan. And then that master plan has to be reviewed on an annual or, periodically, to ensure that we're staying on course, because the city continues to grow. Nothing stays stagnant.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any further questions? Thanks for taking time with us, Chief.
No, thank you. I appreciate you guys' support. I'm very excited about this project, so I hope you are too. I think it'll allow us to make some really good informed decisions.
That's a great project, and we appreciate you taking the time to not only tell us about it, but do so in our open meeting so that other folks who are interested to know what we're doing can get the details of what exactly is happening. It's a little tougher, I think, for some of us to explain the analytics side of it, so we appreciate you taking the time and breaking it down for everyone.
Well, thank you.
Further questions? If there are none, then we'll go ahead and end the meeting. See none?
We don't, so for next month, I don't have a topic or a department yet, so if there's somebody you want to hear from for the 25-minute update, let me know. And I'm going to ask the departments too about if there's something topical they want to bring forward.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.